Obrigado, Pedro. Pedro Faustino, que agora vamos, obviamente, olhar para.
And now we're going to look at the future. And so we're going to look at three pillars: artificial intelligence, Web 3.0, and the data. And so these three realities must interlink, and how can they interlink for our life and for democracies? And so there are people who are already sitting down near me and who we invited, and we have to know how the political power is going to put into practice the suggestions. And so we're going to go with Aline Olivares, keynote speaker. Aline, Professor. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm here with a different hat on. I was asked to make a brief introduction for an effort that was made, in the last 9 months, up to January this year. And so this was a request by the previous government, American Pilar, who was responsible for this at the time. And the three documents were draft, which had got to do with the national strategy of artificial intelligence, Web 3.0, and data. And I would just like to describe to you the process that took place, what happened, and where we are. And so basically, this was a process that was coordinated by PT, and all the structure that existed. And this was coordinated by João Gama, Dados Graça and Web3 João Gama, Web3 João Gama. And so I practiced, I didn't do anything, but I tried to coordinate the efforts of these three teams. And the purpose of these efforts was to guarantee the alignment of these strategies, and because they are very closely related, data and new technologies of Web3, very, very closely linked. So we integrated the best international practices to understand what's already done on the international level, and the legislation, the indications that exist in Europe and the European Union, and take advantage of a system of the ecosystem of collaboration. And we relied on the active participation of companies, researchers, institutions, or business associations, etc. And finally, at the end of this process in December 2023, we handed over a proposal. You know the events that took place, and these events were handed over to the next government. So we had, from the present government, we have the indication that the process is going to move forward. We had a meeting with the minister who was here present, and he informed us that this process will move forward, and these documents will be put to public discussion. And there are only 2 or 3 numbers about the process itself, and so I think this was one of those things that was very well done. We had resources allocated to the strategy. It wasn't as 2 or 3 university professors just to write something and they had no time at all. No, we had actually resources allocated to the process. We had a team of specialists working with us, and we had more than 40 specialists in the area. We received over 300 contributions, and we had hundreds of companies. And we had dozens of contributions, hundreds of documents were studied, and we analyzed the documents related to strategies in Spain, Finland, the United Kingdom, Singapore, and the state of New York. So there was strategies that were really analysed, and they were chosen at this time because it was understood that those were the best. And all this process was part integrated into 3 documents that corresponded to the strategies and 3 action plans with 3 initiatives. And so all this work was handed over to the person responsible, Tim Hughes, who handed over to this new government, and he was going to carry on with this work, with renewal of the teams, etc. But we think it's a very important process. Each one of the strategies has a vision, has a number of pillars and initiatives. I'm not going to go into detail because we don't have the freedom to mention this. We can't because it's not public yet. And so we have to be careful about what we say. And so we have these documents, and so action plans have been drafted, and it's not what just have. You can't just have a strategy and an action plan for projects without a budget, just don't exist. And so we must have a defined action plan, and we need to allocate a budget to each one of the initiatives, to each one of the strategies. If not, we'll end up by doing something. And unfortunately, it happens to Portugal. We have good documents, good ideas, and good strategies, but we have no ways to implement these strategies. We have no specific action plans. We have no budgets. And so I think in this case, we want to do things, but we don't have the resources to do them. And in this thing, I don't think it should be due to lack of financial resources or budget. It's a political will to do this, and the resources have been allocated to each one of this. And so we're here to discuss these documents in general terms, as I said, and that is why we're here today. And so I'm going to sit down and give the floor to the moderator and the colleagues who have coordinated each one of the strategies. And thank you. So let's all start talking, because as we are late, we are going to have to save some time. I would like to introduce the members of this panel. So in addition to Arlindo Oliveira, we have João Gama. He is the coordinator of the data strategy, Miguel Correa, and or rather we have Graça Cantamaniz, who's the coordinator of data strategy, Miguel Correa, the coordinator of Web3, and João Gama, the coordinator of the AI strategy. So let's start with the data, Graça. So what is a strategy that could be adopted in Portugal for us to not be left lagging behind? And so Amazon, Google, Microsoft, let's control them. A huge amount. I had 93. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here, and congratulations APDC for the 40th anniversary. And this is one of the concerns that we had when we were studying the measures. In 2020, European Union published a strategy, the EU strategy for the economy of data, where it outlines a number of targets and obligations that different countries, different member states have to comply. And so the strategy in Portugal should be in line with this vision of the European Union in the first place. And so there are other strategies that were important and we took into account from the OECD. And so the European Union is the main reference because the strategy that was published in 2020 is revolutionary because the main objective was to give access to data, to facilitate this access. One of them because the data are fundamental for artificial intelligence, which is the main topic of this conference, And so there was a great proximity between this intention to facilitate access to the data and to facilitate innovation in the EU. And there are many other concrete measures, but one is very important, which is the creation of the European data spaces, which are little ecosystems in different areas in health. For example, that's the one that has developed more because access to data in health for scientific research is somewhat difficult. And so this is a concern of the European Union, the creation of spaces, and this is the interest that the European Union created and decided was more relevant for easy access. So you're talking about a decision or a community framework. Now we are going to be part of this framework, or is there something specific? Well, yes, of course, there's the specificities. Is there something to? How can Portugal be in the forefront? Well, there are various areas. It has to accompany the efforts of the European Union in terms of health. And here in Portugal, I have accompanied a number of research projects, and sometimes these professors are very frustrated because of the lack of access they have to data. For example, questions related to climate, the sea, tourism. These are all areas that our economy are very strong, and they are going to be reflected in this participation of the development of our economy. And so are we prepared to be part of this race? But let's go around. We'll talk about this in a minute. And so, Miguel Pupkaya, we're going to talk about Web 3. So my question is a very brief definition of Web 3.0. So are we talking about this decentralization of the web? I would like to say good morning to everybody and congratulate APDC and thank you for the invitation to be here. Now this topic is somewhat fundamental. We are talking about informatic systems that are very complicated, that are copied in many computers, which is very strange because people are economical and keep their data and systems in few computers. But the vision here is that it's to copy data in many computers and to have a huge resilience because we have something that is copied in computers all over the world, and some countries will decide to turn these computers off so this structure can continue to work. And it continues to work because decentralized. We don't have to rely on an entity, big tech, that controls the data, as we saw a while ago. But we can trust a community of people for different reasons, for different personal reasons that control these computers and are willing to participate in this network. And that's why the network is decentralized. We have to have, we must rely or trust these entities. And this is relatively new. How does this work? I mean, how do you bring about this decentralization? Well, like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a good example. It's a bad example at the same time. We've heard a little bit too much about it, but we forget all the problems of investment, etc. Bitcoin is a community that was created. They put their computers, they linked their computers to this network because they felt like it. And today we have a community with hundreds and thousands of computers all over the world who are part of this network, and they have a resilient network because they have a link. These many people are linked and they have there's a single interest and they provide services without having to depend on a big tech, a bank, a government. So these are people who provide these services voluntarily. And so this automation or decentralization obviously has to be done in community terms. I've already mentioned that that's a European strategy. But what in Portugal, do we have the ability to create a hub in this area? Yes. Well, there is a hub in Portugal. There's a hub which has two components. It's got the component which already existed here, number of PhDs made in Portugal on this matters. In Portugal is attracting a great community to work in this area. So it's a very informal network. And so they have to come into the legal framework. So João Gama, artificial intelligence, we've already heard a little bit about the impact. And so from a national perspective, and to give a role to the government, what are the areas that, in your opinion, Portugal should be more focused on, and those that can be more problematic? Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to greet you all and congratulate APDC. Thank you for the invitation to be here. It is important that the community meet and discuss such current problems. And in terms of artificial intelligence, it seems that there's changing the way we work, we live, and think. And to the areas in Portugal, that's, for example, when we talk about our life, it's all very generic. Is there any specific areas where Portugal has to think more of? There are areas that Portugal can have a preponderant role. One of them is natural language. That is Portuguese tools to process Portuguese. Portugal is one of the countries that has more interest in this, and this is a topic that can privilege collaborations with Brazil, who is also interested in this topic. Most of the consultations in Portugal, in Portuguese, in Google's, and this is something the Portuguese community should think about. And there's another area that Portugal could be very interested in is the sea. And Portugal has the biggest area, the biggest maritime area in the ocean, Atlantic Ocean, but explores it very little. And so autonomous submarines could help us take more economic benefit from our space. And so these are two areas where Portugal can have a certain interest in this. We're going to talk about some of these projects that are being developed in this area and in the scope of the PA. And I was thinking of an interview that the ministry responsible for the PRA said that we need to implement 90% of the PRA. And we also have this problem, bureaucracy in Portugal. The human being to set out an application takes about 2 days. This is an area where artificial intelligence in Portugal could help us. We receive queues and queues of people because they cannot process document. Is this an area where Portugal should invest? I know you can't talk about the document. I would like to thank you for your investment, and I think it would be an excellent opportunity to put this working. And I participated in draft projects that took a year to assess. And that's a total loss of energy in the situations of these times. What would you do differently? You see all these applications in less than a day, yeah. the application wouldn't be assessed in a day.
Give a rank in terms of intrinsic value of being analyzed by experts, filtering many. Arlindo Oliveira, how do we combine these three areas, which are very decisive, to present a strategy in Portugal? How do they work, and why are they so decisive? I analyzed this with the minister. Our overall concern, there are two main challenges in Portugal. First of all, productivity. We need to be more productive, be more efficient to produce more with less working hours or with the same working hours. It's an objective measures. We're less productive than the overwhelming and countries we compete with. And the HR challenge. We have an aging population. We don't have enough people to develop the projects we'd like for companies to be able to hire. So two main challenges in the countries, and these two challenges can be tackled by these technologies. AI, if duly applied with the right data, can contribute to be more efficient in things. We take a very long time. It has to do with processes which aren't well set up, an organizational problem, and the other is a technological one. And this is true for the digital. AI is essential, but it's true for the digital. It should allow the state to be more efficient, companies to produce more with the same resources and to obtain the same results. And this is where the digital is relevant. Concerning the Web3, there's an innovation component. Many areas where a distributed system can bring new apps, new solutions. So it contributes towards innovation. And how do you increase productivity with technological evolution, which has allowed us to increase productivity? The last years, technologies are essential in terms of innovation. The data is the modern driver. We can discover new scientific findings, new products to make more efficient and to identify fraud and so on. This is why this is vital for the country. And are people, is the country aware of it? No, not enough awareness. For instance, when the country becomes less productive, raising barriers that decrease productivity. And when, let's imagine solving a fraud problem inferior to 1%. When the forms are very heavy, validations are heavy, for each acquisition within the resilient recovery plan. I don't know if it was in Brussels, it came from Brussels, from the Ministry of Finance or any other ministry, or a civil servant. It's a very bad idea because we're creating bureaucratic barriers that practically have no effect in reducing corruption, but has an enormous impact on people's productivity. And could AI decrease? It's a technology. AI is a technology and can be used, as João Gahnemann mentioned, to assess, not to make the final decision in relation to an application. There's a clear European will, that there always will be a human being making the final decision, but you can read 300 pages of an application. Other countries, 3 or 4 pages to draw what is essential, applying with the requirements, objectives are being aligned, and to present a summary. Now, if bureaucracy wasn't that heavy, you wouldn't have to present and so many. You can have summarized components. AI can do can do it. If we had a greater in data integration from public administration, would be easier. We wouldn't have to fill in our address and tax identification number endlessly. Portugal is not lagging behind our public administration. No, but there are many things where we should be better. Indeed, your question was, is everyone aware of it? No. Everyone wants more bureaucracy, knowing that it will influence negatively productivity is providing a bad service to the country with a good intention, providing a bad service, a poor service, because we should focus on being more efficient, producing more with the resources we have. And many measures taken go in the opposite direction. Are data more valuable than precious metal? And when we're speaking about a new data strategy as Web 3.0, how are we going to process that data the way we've been doing until now? Or from now on, we have to be more attentive on how they're made available and used. I'm going to speak about the three strategies. They're cross-cutting, including public administration, the state and private sector. And their concern was focused on the citizen, the person, and the way how all these strategies, like AI, using data processing, as you mentioned, Web 3.0, will impact the citizen. There are already many national, European, international rules that state how data are to be used. So it's a question of being capable of applying and to knowledge. It's hyper regulated. There's a regulation on data protection, data governance, AI regulation. So there are legal frameworks to avoid risks and impacts on people. We're speaking about data that are easily stored when we use the web, but there are data that need to be used, and many are not yet on the web. How is Portugal? Where does it stand when we speak about public administration or even GPs, doctors, health? How do we process data so that they're ready? The legal structure exists, but then there are two problems. One, which relates to people, are always going back to people. Some of them are not have no knowledge about the rules. They don't like providing. They don't like to provide information. And then, in addition to people, there are difficulties in the storage infrastructure themselves, and even in terms of hyper security, information security, and cyber security. But the main problem, and this was a concern in all strategies, is to work with people and the knowledge people have, not only of technology, but the legal framework that exists and what they can or cannot do. So the main point is literacy, digital literacy, which was a concern and which was cross-cutting to the three areas mentioned. Not only here, but those accompanying virtually streaming many entrepreneurs. And data mean capital, valuable to know their clients, to obtain more profits, develop more jobs. So how can companies and should companies enter this data market or to develop it? This is the challenge. I forgot to mention earlier that in Portugal, in the EU, we're at two speeds. the so-called open data, the ability the public administration state to make available information has on itself, has been a concern for some time, and now the EU extended it to the private sector. So the effort of the entrepreneur providing data on their company because there's a competition, intellectual property issues. This is an EU specificity, and also international organizations. There is a concern with the fact that 4 or 5 big techs concentrating a big quantity of information. Many of these rule strategies at international level have been thought of taking into account these large enterprises, not the small, medium sized businessman. Yes, clearly. Nationally, yes, of course. And even the EU itself overall is concerned with its geopolitical position. It is the United States with this economic capacity to concentrate information on people and companies. Like Meta has a lot of information, and Amazon on entrepreneurs, products, and services. And looking at China, and the data governance model is very different, and the EU is seeking what will be the model pattern. This is to find an alternative to the big debts. It doesn't mean that the entrepreneurs, smaller and medium-sized entrepreneurs, are not being considered. Yes, they are. But national efforts can make more of a difference than a macro perspective. Miguel Cuellar, picking up on what has just been said and going back to Web 3.0, I'm going to ask to become less dependent of larger companies. Speaking about decentralization, the entrepreneurs want to know how communities can be more autonomous and decentralized. And decentralization, we just don't depend on one company. We're speaking about faster communities. So it's the citizens, users' responsibility, which is essential, and technologies are focused on users, and this allows to preserve privacy. So some concrete examples: when someone, the vertex like Google's and so on, have a lot of information on us, so because we register, log in with our name, email, we're supplying data, and then they obtain data from our health, and so on. So these companies have a complete profile on whom we are, what we think, and what we expose on social media. So with these technologies, this information is on the user side. It allows us to have different identity before different companies, reveal data, not other. And who controls it? It's on the user side. The control is on the, and it's possible. This is done ad hoc, communities emerging on the NIP, and the idea of the strategy to digitalize, not in this ad hoc form, but more organized, and the country, public administration, companies providing the instruments to use these technologies, provide the tools. So this strategy relates to digital transformation, process digitalization, and representing value. This is how this technology came about with Bitcoins, and also rights, ownership of an article, digital art ownership can be represented in that type of platform, and that the owner is me or an anonymous or is anonymous, but can demonstrate that that bank cyberbank costs 100 million euros, and show that he or she owns it, and to evolve towards other things like cars, with the strategy cars, houses, create digital representations, tokens, crypto tokens, digital representation of different things that exist in the physical world, and then to be able to trade them. Are the risks greater? I remember problems with cryptocurrency. With the crypto, how do we reduce risk when we speak about Web3, these communities, without stifling them with legal frameworks? Well, this brings dangerous as AI. The fact on passing on the control to the citizen company does show risks. Companies are used to have someone. Oh, they've or someone's withdrawn money from a bank account. I go to the bank and complain, and if this doesn't does makes mistakes like phishing and so on, this citizen can lose if the ability to complain, or there no longer be an entity at the bank providing a service becomes a diffuse entity. It raises new risks of cybersecurity, cyber fraud. This is part of the strategy without revealing the document. This is part of the strategy. João Gama, looking at the national reality and where do we stand in terms of generalized AI and its use? Do we have to follow the other countries? So we have the example of Estonia. Is Portugal lagging behind? Is it at the same level, or does it have to accelerate? Portugal has a tradition in AI research. No, companies use AI tools. More and more use AI tools, and we are promoting and we are developing the universities are preparing either through recent degrees in AI, data science, masters. So they are preparing future generations. Universities are preparing future generations that will work in the industry. So I work in the Faculty of Economics. So during the pandemic, the information I received from my colleagues that worked and studied employment in Portugal, it was the only job that was hiring was on data processing and data analytics during the pandemic. So there's quite a lot of demand for people with skills, with the competency in analytic data processing. And not only in Porto, we have 3 masters in science and data, where many students are people that are employed. They have jobs in very different areas, and they seek advanced training in data science to improve, perfect their position in the company. And at this moment, demand is big. It's huge. It's huge. It's more than supply, and we need to improve supply. And the Portuguese entrepreneurs, are they coming in without preconcepts? This reality? Are they coming in? I think they have a positive attitude. I've been collaborating with companies for the last years before AI being famous. And at that time, when I collaborated with the companies, the company's position was how much am I going to make using this tool or instrument, and it's changed. This attitude has changed, and they don't want to quantify in euros how much they're going to make, but there is potential. They understand that there is potential to innovate in the company, and the innovation value is not measured in euros in the short run. Professor Erlindo, I know you cannot speak about the document which will be submitted to the minister. What do you expect from a political power? What do you expect the government to do? Will it depend on the social fabric society? Do we need legislative structure? Do we need more political active initiatives? I was thinking of what I could say without going into details. There are three essential pillars. First pillar is the valuation of technology, the perception of the value. Measures and proposals relate to society, users, organizations, companies are aware of what they can do with the AI technology, value, relevance of the data, what's the added value, and they value in some cases the advantage of a distributed implementation, centralized implementation. This relating to value, then empowerment, capacity building. Not only having read an article on the subject, but understand the technology, understand it sufficiently to know how to implement and what are the challenges. So the capacity building of our human resources, and third, governance. So these technologies have many consequences in terms of government, AI, data in particular, less in terms of three dots here because of the technology. There are bodies which have to be set up, established, rules, directives on and there are directives which need to be adapted. So these were the three main pillars, and there needs to be a political will. But in addition to this topic, in Portugal, there's always political will, but the ability to carry it out is different. We want the companies using AI and people. It's easy to say so. We're going to have the ability to give the resources to companies, train people, budgets allocated to essential activities. So these pillars are subject to a set of values like ethics, confidence, trust, safety and security, and then several initiatives objective to strengthen the infrastructure ecosystems. In some cases, you need computational infrastructures. In other cases, more virtual structures, cooperation, and so infrastructure. So these are the underlying ideas. These are trivial ideas. That is, at home, you probably would have written this down. But there are concrete measures, concrete proposals, and action plans that the governments tend to assess the government that has taken office, which are the priorities, budgets allocated. So I think we need political will to consider that resources need to be allocated and people need time to be allocated. So I'm going to challenge the three of you, not going into the document which is being discussed. Give us an advice to the decision makers. What do you need in your area that Portugal is in the forefront of this race? Resources are essential. Resources. João Gama. Portugal should invest in excellence and financing and resources. Miguel Correia. need the ability to not listen to the noise, the fraud, the Web 3.0 issues. You need not to hear the lies, and then to consider the real benefits for the country and Portuguese economy and the citizens. It's difficult, and this technology is more difficult than the others because it's more recent. So thank you for your advice, and your document will be delivered, and hopefully we'll be able to know. We'll be able to listen to the example and to two examples. I'm speaking about Spain and Estonia.